Hey everyone, it's Triple Mango Threat or Ashley, and today we're going over the cards to add and remove from Spirit Squadron. The commander we'll be using is Millicent, Restless Revenant. For 5 white-blue, we have a 4/4 Spirit Soldier. It costs 1 less for each spirit we control, and it has flying. Whenever Millicent or another non-token spirit dies or deals combat damage to a player, we create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. So with this deck, I'm looking to make a ton of spirits, make those spirits deal a lot of damage, and draw more cards. So starting with the cards we're going to add, let's talk about Bident of Thassa for 2 and 2 blue. It's a legendary enchantment artifact, so it's going to be pretty easy to remove, but whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. This is going to be super helpful for the deck because we're going to have so many creatures out, and for each creature we're drawing a card whenever they hit our opponents. Next, we're talking about Ribbons of the Rakai. For 4 and a blue, it's a sorcery. Draw a card for each spirit you control. For the price of this card, I really recommend you pick up at least this one for the deck. Next, we're talking about True Conviction for 3, white. It's an enchantment. Creatures you control have Double Strike and Lifelink. I mostly care about the Double Strike because our commander says whenever our spirits die or when they deal combat damage, and so when they have Double Strike, that means if we hit our opponent with 3 non-token spirits and we have True Conviction out, that means we create 6 spirits instead of just 1 for each creature. So this gets out of hand really quick, and also the lifelink would be nice as well. Next, let's talk about Austere Command for 4 white. This is a sorcery. We can choose 2 from Destroy All Artifacts, Enchantments, Creatures with converted mana cost 3 or less, or 4 or greater. This is going to give us a lot of options, and hopefully we're not going to have to destroy our creatures, but sometimes it's necessary in order for us to actually continue the game and not die. Mausoleum Wanderer for 1 blue, it's a 1/1 spirit with flying. When it enters the battlefield under our control, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn. We can then sacrifice it to counter an instant or a sorcery unless its controller pays X, where X is Mausoleum's power. This is going to be very easy to add up with the next card we're talking about, which is Cathar's Crusade. For 3 and 2 white, it's an enchantment. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. So when we make those 6 tokens from True Conviction, if we have Cathar's Crusade, that means each creature is getting +6/+6 counters, so they are keeping their power and toughness up +6. Next, let's talk about Yosai the Morning Star for 4 white. It's a 5/5 dragon spirit with flying. When it dies, target player skips his or her next untap step. Tap up to 5 target permanents that player controls. This is going to be a very devastating card to be playing, especially because the next card we're going to be adding is Reflections of Littjara. For 4 and a blue, we get an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type, so spirits. Whenever you cast a spell of the chosen type, copy that spell. So a copy of a permanent becomes a token. So if we have a token of Yosai, one of them will have to die because it's a legendary permanent. And when it dies, we're going to create a spirit token, and we're also going to make a player skip their untap step, which will be really bad. Next, let's talk about Hour of Reckoning, our other board wipe for the deck. It's for 4 white. It's a sorcery with Convoke, which will help us reduce the cost of this board wipe, and since we have so many creatures, this can end up being 4 mana, and it's going to let us destroy all non-token creatures, and since we have so many creature tokens that we'll be making, this will definitely be in our favor. The last card I want to talk about to add is probably my favorite out of all the 10, is Dragon Throne of Tarkir for 4 mana. It's a legendary artifact equipment, and we can equip it to a creature, and that creature will gain Defender, and also pay 2, tap this creature. Other creatures you control gain Trample and +X/+X until end of turn, where X is this creature's power and it has a cost of equipping for 3. If we equip this to our commander, which is a 4/4, we pay 2 and tap Millicent. Each of our creatures get +4/+4 and Trample. On top of the flying, we're going to be dealing a lot of damage, especially if we have those 6 tokens from True Conviction. Those are now all 5/5s with Dragon Throne of Tarkir's buff, so that's now 30 power from 6 creatures. Yeah, this is a highly undervalued, underrated card, and I really recommend it for a deck that has a ton of creatures in it. Next, let's talk about the cards that I would remove from the deck. Starting with Custody Soulbinders for 3 and a white, it's a 0/0 human cleric. When it enters the battlefield, it enters with X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the number of creatures on the battlefield. So this can be a huge amount of counters. We can pay 2 and a white to remove a +1/+1 counter from Custody Soulbinders to create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. I wanted to take this out because it's not a spirit, it does make spirits, but for 3 mana we only get 1 creature, and we're removing a counter from this as well. I feel like we can have better mana spent instead of this card. Next, let's talk about Custody Squire for 4 and a white. It's a 3/3 Spirit Cleric with flying. It has Will of the Council, which means when this enters the battlefield starting with you, each player votes for artifact, creature, or enchantment in your graveyard. Return each card with the most votes or tied for the most votes to your hand. A similar situation, I think we have mana that can be better spent instead of this one. It is a spirit, but our opponents get to vote on what we get back, so I don't think this is a good card for this deck. Fell the Mighty is a 4 white sorcery. We destroy all creatures with power greater than target creature's power. Well, since we're going to have huge creatures in the deck, I don't think this is a good board wipe. And with the other board wipes that I talked about adding, they're going to give us more versatility and more likely to keep all of our creatures, or most of them. Next, we're removing Ghostly Prison for 2 and a white. It's an enchantment. Creatures can attack you unless their controller pays 2 mana for each creature that is attacking you. I don't think this is a good card in the deck, because 2 mana isn't that much, especially when they have a huge creature to swing at us and they just need 1 to kill us. Next, let's talk about Hallowed Spirit Keeper. For 1 white, it's a 3/2 avatar with vigilance. When it dies, we create X 1/1 white spirit creature tokens with flying, where X is the number of creatures in your graveyard. I wanted to take this one out because it's not a spirit. So when it dies, we're not making a token from our commander, but when it dies just from the card, we create X 1/1 white spirit creature tokens with flying, equal to the creatures in our graveyard, which could be a good thing, but this was just one I wasn't really feeling for the deck. Hanged Executioner for 2 and a white. It's a 1/1 spirit with flying. When it enters the battlefield, we create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. We can pay 3 and a white to exile target creature. I removed this because I feel like the cards I added are going to do us a lot better than this one. Kurtar's Wrath for 4 white. It's a sorcery. Destroy all creatures. They can't be regenerated. If 7 or more cards are in your graveyard, instead, destroy all creatures, then create 2 1/1 white spirit creature tokens with flying. Creatures destroyed this way can't be regenerated. I am not going to pay 6 mana to destroy all creatures and only get 2 spirits out of it. I'd rather have a more flexible board wipe like Austere Command to choose what I really need to get rid of, and this one just isn't working for me. Promise of Boonrai. For 2 and a white, it's an enchantment. Whenever a creature you control dies, we can sacrifice this, and if you do, create 4 1/1 colorless spirit creature tokens. So essentially we're paying 3 mana to get 4 creatures. I didn't want this in the deck. I'd rather have the cards I added instead of this one. Flood of Tears for 4 blue. It's a sorcery. Return all non-land permanents to their owner's hand. If you return 4 or more non-token permanents you control this way, you may put a permanent from your hand onto the battlefield. Returning cards to our hand and even our opponents is probably not the best idea. I think destroying them would be a better option, but even if they are graveyard decks, I'm sure they can take advantage of that kind of board wipe. We're going to have a lot of token creatures, so this board wipe will not be good for us. And the last card to remove is Kami of the Crescent Moon. This might surprise some of you because if you know me, I love cards that make us draw an additional card, or even each player draw an additional card. This is a spirit and it's a hug card, but I'm really focused on just having our creatures deal as much damage as possible, get as many creatures as possible, and this was just not a part of that theme. Thank you all so much for watching. If you like any of these cards, you can use the TCG link down below to purchase the cards to add, and you're going to support the channel at no additional cost to you. If you haven't seen it already, I posted the Vampire deck, and that is also a $20 budget upgrade video. Thank you to the patrons who help support this show, and you can also help support the channel to see your name at the end of these videos, and you get rewards as well. Be sure to comment down below and subscribe for more Mango content. I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.